For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire.
When Obi-Wan Kenobi told Luke the Jedi were the guardians of peace for over 1,000 generations, he didn't mention it only took one generation for it to be brought to the verge of extinction. It's hard to imagine that an organization that was once a powerful force, no pun intended, for so long was reduced to nothing so quickly. So why did the Jedi Order fall so quickly? In this video, I want to focus mostly on the events during the prequel films, mostly Revenge of the Sith, and touch on some of the events on the Clone Wars TV series. In some ways, the Jedi Order was a lot like any other big organization. It had its really strong members, average members, some not so great members, and of course there were those that followed their own path. Being such a large organization, one that needed to be able to provide support to an entire galaxy, required a structure that would allow it to remain organized and somewhat efficient throughout its tenure. It's hard to argue that the code or hierarchical structure were major factors in the downfall of the Jedi, because up until the Phantom Menace, the Order had survived every major conflict. This collapse was due rather to the failure of its leaders of the organization to properly manage their resources, mostly their personnel, deal with internal issues, and even perform their primary function. One of the most prominent failures of the Jedi was the way they handled Anakin's training and just royally screwed up the whole prophecy of the Chosen One. Imagine you hire an employee who has off-the-charts IQ, talent that far exceeds any current employee, even at the C-level position, and your first act is to assign them to an entry-level employee as their supervisor. You'd be absolutely nuts to do that, but that's exactly what the Jedi in all their wisdom decided to do with Anakin. At his level, the only ones that were really capable of training him properly were Yoda or Mace Windu. In essence, he had a supervisor that he outshone from the beginning, and he knew it, primarily because they also told him he was the Chosen One. So you have a person who is told he's basically all-powerful, is the only one who can fulfill an ancient prophecy, has known anger issues, and you pair him with a noob. So before we continue on, let's come back to planet Earth for a second. While on this planet, no one has mythical powers that we know of, but have you ever witnessed, or maybe you've experienced this for yourself, what happens to a talented employee who is not allowed to develop as they should? It really is a tragic thing to see. And just as in the Star Wars universe, things like pride and fear can prevent managers from allowing their subordinates to grow and reach their full potential. Some are afraid they'll lose their job to that person, others might be afraid they won't be the big man on the block anymore, or others just may fear that if it doesn't work out, they'll look bad. So many different reasons, none of them good, but that's what happens at a lot of companies, and unfortunately the Jedi were no different. As Anakin continues to develop as a Jedi throughout the films, his brashness and need for validation also grows. Obi-Wan, not being a particularly naturally gifted Jedi by any means, couldn't really help Anakin tap into his potential as he needed to. This happens a lot in companies where an employee has a lot of energy and ideas they are eager to try, but are constantly stifled by their supervisor or other managers because that's, quote, not the way we do things here, or maybe they have a fear of rocking the boat. Eventually, when that employee always hears no or never receives the praise or validation they need, they become disgruntled very quickly. A company's big mistake is not knowing the motivations of each employee. Some people want public recognition or need constant validation. Others just like hearing thank you from their supervisor. And others like things like plaques to hang in their office. Then there are those who are motivated by the potential of promotions, just like Anakin. Regardless of their reason, if management fails to nurture that motivation, the employee will never be satisfied no matter what you do. The Jedi Council treated Anakin like many companies treat their employees, as a means to an end rather than an individual with their own ambitions. You would think that after many prominent Jedi fell to the dark side for this very reason, the Order would try to fix that, but they never did, to their own detriment. This brings me to the next point regarding Anakin. The Jedi had no plan for him as the Chosen One, and never let him know how to move forward in his training. On a side note, regarding the Chosen One, there's never really any good explanation in the movies as to what that even means. All that's stated is that this person will bring balance to the Force. It doesn't say how, or when, or anything else. So there's no real reason why the Jedi assumed that the Chosen One was even supposed to be strictly a Jedi. In the first place, that would put things out of balance. And, had they understood what the word balance meant, they could have had Anakin do separate training where he learns to use both the dark and the light side and bring himself into balance. By training him to use the dark side, they could have helped him learn to control it or outright reject it, but instead they trained him as if he was the same as everyone else. They could have had him study the teachings of Revan to figure out how to master both sides of the Force, but instead they decided that fulfilling the prophecy was something that was supposed to benefit them. Again, back here in our galaxy, companies pride themselves with professional development opportunities, in-house training classes, and certifications that they tell employees, if you take all these trainings, you'll be able to move up. And how many of you have been in a position where you did everything you were supposed to for that promotion, but you still didn't get to move up? I know I've been in that situation myself and was left wondering, what did I do wrong? Why was I passed over? And if you've been in this situation, you know what that does for morale. It kills it. If employees can't easily understand what they need to do in order to move up, then you don't have a development program. You have favoritism. If you tell employees there's a process to move up and they meet all that criteria but still don't get promoted, then you don't have a process. You have a free-for-all. And once the perception is that promotions aren't based on merit, it won't matter what you do to incentivize the staff in the future, they won't believe you. In Anakin's case, the Order never had a sort of career plan for him that laid out what he needed to accomplish in order to become a Jedi Master. By the time Palpatine requests Anakin to be on the Council, there was little else Anakin could do in order to gain the rank he wanted, yet he was just told no. Now imagine if your boss told you that you were getting extra responsibility, but not that new title and benefits you've always wanted, you'd be pretty ticked too. Even when Anakin came to Mace Windu with news that Palpatine was a Sith Lord, Windu just tells Anakin that he's earned his trust, but not to do anything until he gets back. All he had to do was say, when I get back, you'll be made a Jedi Master and we can talk about your future as a full member of the Council. Instead, by not telling Anakin his plan, he leaves him in the dark, feeling helpless. Now, we can't talk about the failure of the Jedi Order's personnel management without mentioning Ahsoka. The whole controversy surrounding Ahsoka was such a blatant miscarriage of justice that anyone who was watching it unfold could see how pompous the Jedi had become. Even when they were proven wrong, they offered very little in the way of an apology, and even sort of acted like they did her a favor. When speaking with Anakin later on, Obi-Wan even basically says, yeah, we screwed up, but it's her fault for not staying. Again, back here on Earth, when employees see other employees, especially good ones, treated poorly, it has a huge impact on the morale of the company. I worked for an organization where people became so fed up they literally stopped doing their job and just collected a paycheck until they were found out, in which case they quit or got fired. They completely gave up and the turnover was incredibly high, but management still had the audacity to wonder why people were leaving. So instead of trying to figure things out and make changes, they added more responsibility and restrictions to that position and things got even worse. This is in essence the same thing the Order does. Now, personnel management isn't the only area the Jedi Order failed. Eventually, they couldn't even perform their primary function, but still had the gall to demand power. Mace Windu states, I think it's time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force has diminished. Wait, what? The one thing that makes you exceptional is no longer in play? So what purpose do you serve? Imagine if the Secretary of Defense told the President our military's ability to use guns has diminished. That would be insane. Yet this is what Mace Windu thinks is a good idea. Then, not too much later, he states, the Jedi will need to take control of the Senate. But wait, you just said the one thing that gives you power is diminished. So why and how do you think you could take control and hold the Senate? And why do you think anyone would trust you to do that anyway? If an organization cannot perform its primary function, there's no reason it should be trusted to perform any other function, nor should it be able to make demands of other organizations. Yet, we see this a lot. The more an industry or business fails, the more they seem to want to exert influence over the consumer. If you need examples of this, just take a look at the gaming or movie industry in recent years, and you'll get an idea of the consequences of what happens when industries fail to deliver to their target audience, but still demand positions of influence. Moving on, in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan informs the Council that a Jedi Master named Sifo Dyas ordered the creation of a clone army. Let's break that down a little bit more so we can understand the magnitude of what he's saying. Sifo Dyas didn't just hire a few mercenaries or auxiliary troops, he ordered an entire army without the Council's knowledge. Either Sifo Dyas was the richest, most clandestine Jedi in the history of the galaxy, or this Jedi Council was grossly incompetent. The kind of resources that would require this would be insane. First, you need a ton of money. Then, you need to somehow ensure the bounty hunter you hired as Patient Zero kept absolutely quiet, and then you'd need to make sure that no one who worked in connection with this cloning facility spilled the beans, and then you'd need to figure out a way to keep it completely quiet from people who have the ability to read minds. The fact that the Jedi didn't see this happening at all shows they had no idea what was going on in their own house, but somehow they expected everyone else to believe they could maintain peace throughout the galaxy. There's a saying we have here on Earth. They were either really stupid or they were in on it. This basically describes the Jedi Order in this situation. The oversight turned the balance of power because these were the same troops that would eventually help wipe the Jedi out. So not only did the Jedi not know the army was commissioned, but then they didn't even try to stop its actual deployment. Unfortunately, things like this happen on a much smaller scale here on Earth too. When things like fraud and embezzlement happen, or widespread allegations of misconduct, how often do we hear, "We will get to the bottom of this," as everyone feigns ignorance of the crime? So what can we learn from all of this? What can we learn from a once proud order in a galaxy far, far away? Well, first thing is, all organizations, even ones that have mind-reading, magic power ability using members, can fail. Even the best and brightest, most talented managers and organizational leaders can still fail if they become complacent. Second, talent management will make or break your organization. If you don't manage your most important asset, your employees, especially your good ones, you will fail. Hopefully they just go work for the competition and not pull an Anakin and wipe out their former coworkers. Third, organizations that want to remain relevant must commit 100% to fulfilling their primary function. If they lose the ability to do so, they need to do everything they can to regain it. If they attempt to assert influence without the ability to uphold their main obligations to their customers, their attempts to make any impact will be shut down. Finally, any organization that can't see the weaknesses or potential weaknesses inside will be destroyed from the inside out. Great empires are typically never destroyed from the outside, but rather the inside out. Anyways, that should just about wrap up this video. So, what did you guys think? What other things did the Jedi Order do that caused its downfall? Please let me know in the comments. And remember, please like and subscribe and check out my website, www.pbeatty.com, to download a free copy of my ebook, You Got This, a small guide to solving big problems. And until next time, may the Force be with you.